Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by Onyx. The Onyx Hunt app is the premier GPS hunting app available for your smartphone, tablet, computer, all of them synced together. You can mark your waypoints on the computer, they're transferred over to your phone, and vice versa. So one of the features that we actually talk about a little bit here in this podcast is the off-grid feature. So when you have no cell service, you can still use your phone as a GPS and be able to have it operate as normal, even on airplane mode. So what you do to download a map is, while you have open the Onyx Hunt app, the second tab on the bottom is called Offline Maps. You click on that, click New Offline Map, and select the area that you want to download. You can choose from 3 different resolution sizes: high resolution, which does a 5-mile wide area, then a medium, which is 10 miles wide, and then a low res that's 150 miles wide. So you hear us talk about that a little bit in the podcast, and that's what we're referencing. I like to do most of my areas in high res if possible, but it all depends on how much storage you have on your phone and everything else. But really like to being able to use that feature, turn your smartphone into a GPS. So if you want to check out the Onyx Hunt app, head over to onyxmaps.com. Use the coupon code EMW. That'll save you 20% off of the Onyx Hunt app. And Tethered Nation. So Tethered Nation was created from a vision, from a need in the industry. There was a smaller niche community of saddle hunters that were lacking in gear options available to be able to really innovate. And so what the Tethered team did was develop the most innovative, lightweight, and safest elevated hunting gear on the planet. And I heard they have a new platform coming out here. They released some news on that here recently. So it's a bigger form of the Predator platform to put your feet on while you're in the saddle. Super cool to see that, really fitting to all different types of guys, girls, and styles of hunting. So head over to tetherednation.com. Check out their line of saddle hunting gear, as well as just the amount of information on saddle hunting in general. I've learned a lot from that site. So head over there and check that out. University of Elk Hunting. So Corey Jacobson and Elk 101 have put together the most fully comprehensive elk hunting learning course available. 17 different modules, from the beginning phases of figuring out your budgeting, picking a unit, how to scout, how to do all those things, all the way through your training, your fitness, the gear, elk hunting knowledge, down to how to get that animal out of the field when you are successful. So this is everything, a one-stop shop. Don't need to spend hours and hours searching the internet, reading through forums, trying to find useful information. It's all in one place, and it's definitely not too late to check that out for this elk season. I will have Corey on the podcast here in a couple weeks to talk some elk hunting. But if you want to check out the online course, head over to elk101.com and use the coupon code East Meets West. That'll save yourself 20% off of a 1-year membership to the online course. All right. So on this week's episode, I am joined by Bill Vanderheyden, and this will be a 2-part series. Again, I've had a few of those here in the last few months. But this one, just a lot of information here. On this episode, we're going to talk about bow tuning for fixed blade broadheads, how to make sure your bow's shooting correct so that they fly. All about, the fixed blade mechanical kind of, thing that everyone goes back and forth on there, that argument. And also the new wide series heads that are designated mostly for whitetails. So we're talking about all of those things. And in part 2, we're going to talk about all of our Alaska hunt preparation. So Bill and I are both flying with the same air taxi to hunt caribou next month. And so we geek out on that, talk gear, expectations, kind of what our thoughts are. And I'm kind of in a tough place, as I mentioned a little bit last week, but my flights have been they've been canceled to this point, and working on different options with the air taxi because of the commercial flights being canceled, see what they can do. Otherwise, I might be up there for longer than I expected, which is, when you're using vacation days, that's kind of a big deal. So trying to figure all that out, navigate the waters, but there's nothing I can do right now. Waiting for the air taxi, look at their schedule. So just not stressing about it, getting things worked out, getting final pieces of gear in. Going to be using a rifle on this hunt. I think I'd mentioned that already in one of the previous episodes, but I decided to go 100% rifle. I knew if I carried both a bow and a rifle, I was going to grab the rifle. For me, doesn't change the experience whatsoever. So I'm actually really excited to try something a little bit different here. And I'm going to be putting together, I got the Maven RS2 scope. I'm going to be putting that on a new Bergara 300 Winchester short mag rifle that I got coming in here shortly. Should be here probably next week. So going to get that and get it sighted in, shoot it a little bit, and just incredibly excited to kind of go down a little bit of a different game with that, with the rifle hunting for this caribou hunt. Plus, I'd feel a little bit better with the chance of Grizz being there and everything, and I've decided not to take my handgun. So, yeah, a lot of cool stuff going on there. But anyways, I do have a few new products up on the website. I forgot to mention this last week, actually, but I have a new baseball tee, like a 3/4 sleeve shirt that I called the Road Trip Tee. And also I got a tank top, the All-American tank top, just a white cotton tank top with the red, white, and blue East Meets West logo on the left pocket area. And also got a couple phone cases up there with a new kind of shirt and hat design that will eventually turn into shirts and hats, but with COVID, I'm struggling getting anything right now. So just understand also with that new Road Trip tee, I've been trying to get that on the website for a while. This one is directly shipped from the supplier. So I'm doing a little bit different with some of the shirt items. Instead of having to stock a whole bunch of sizes, not sure, what people want, everything, I'm doing almost like a drop ship type thing. So I got the products, used them, was making sure they were up to the quality standards that I liked. And so now what would happen was you'd place an order for, there's only a few items that are under this now, and you can see it on the website. I have it right in the description, so it's wide open. But if you order one of these items, it doesn't get fulfilled by me personally. So I'm not shipping that product. It's coming straight from that supplier. And so they're making it basically on demand. So to be fully transparent, I'm not making a very good margin on it, but I also have zero risk in creating the product. And I think that I can, bring more designs to life where otherwise it'd be a little bit tough to justify, throwing thousands of dollars at a new design when I can do that at, low risk going into it. So super excited about some of those things, but just understand that, right now with COVID, there's some delays and things, but you will get your stuff, and it will be, make sure as always that you're 100% satisfied with your order, and I'll take care of you personally. So check that out over at eastmeetswesthunt.com/shop. All right, enough of me rambling on here. Let's get right into this episode with Bill Vanderheyden. All right, we are recording. Bill, how are you doing?
I'm good, Beau. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Pretty good, Bill. It's been about a year since I've had you on the podcast, and for those of you who don't know, this is Bill Vanderheyden from Iron Will Outfitters, and yeah, it's good to talk to you again.
Yeah, good to talk to you too. I see you had a successful elk hunt last year. Congrats on that. That was great.
Yeah, thank you. And was using the Iron Will, the S125 Broadheads, as you saw there, in the K1 skinning knife was a big part of that whole process. So that was pretty awesome to get to use some of your stuff there. And yeah, as you know, we've talked a lot over the last 3 years or so. It's the elk hunt has been something I've been working on for quite a while.
Yeah, last time we talked, you'd had a few years of a lot of work and not an elk down yet. So I really happy to see you your success this year. That's great. And yeah, glad you used the Iron Will S125. That's a great elk head. That's the one I use as well. So that's really cool. Yep.
And then kept the little carbide sharpener in my kill kit and was able to sharpen up that blade again. Use the same. I didn't end up shooting a mule deer, but I had it ready to go, and just needed one quick touch up on each side, and it was ready to rip. But it was funny. I right afterwards, I told Justin, who was doing the filming, I grabbed it. It was stuck in a thing of oak brush. It passed through the elk at 60 yards, all the way through, stuck in the oak brush, because I was looking for my arrow and I couldn't find it, and it was sticking straight out of this piece of oak brush, and grabbed it and shaved hair off my arm with it right then. So that was pretty cool. After when I heard, I've never shot an elk before, obviously, and when I heard the shot, it scared me because what I did was I hit ribs, but for me, when I hear that whack, I think of a whitetail front shoulder, and usually that's not good. And that it was great. Went right through it, busted through the ribs and both lungs there, and it was everything went as planned.
That's great. Yeah, I hear that a lot too. That if it doesn't hit ribs, it zips through so quick and quietly that people think they miss. So hitting a rib I like to hear that.
Yeah. and most of the time for whitetails, I'm using lighted knock or something, and I can see, my arrow and kind of have an idea what's going on. Where in Idaho, we weren't allowed using those. So when I shot, I had no idea where I hit. And even with the footage of it, you couldn't really tell where the shot was hitting, besides the fact that you could see me in slow-mo shaking a little bit as I was at full draw, so that had me concerned. But the shot felt great. It executed it and ended up all working out. But the funny thing about that shot was, at my house, I had set up one of those targets. I can't think, solo targets. It's like a 2D like cardboard cutout, basically, of an elk. It looks live, but you just tack it onto your regular target. And my normal, I'd shoot all over different distances, but if I'd walk out my back door from my patio to that target was exactly 60 yards. So that's just like, if I was going to shoot 5 arrows, I went out and did that. And that shot, when I hit it with the rangefinder, was like 60.2. It popped up. So it was just like all my summer practice. Everything was good, just except for I was on my knees. But everything it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, that's great. That's a pretty long poke. It's in the backyard. What I find is I can shoot really well in the backyard, even 80 and 100 yards. It's like I can always seem to fit in that side, the elk vitals. But you get out there in the field, and even just shooting total archery challenges last weekend, when you're in uneven terrain and shots are up and down and there's more wind and all that, those groups open up and those shots are a little tougher for sure.
Yeah.
Just long distances.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, and that's why I see you doing it all the time, and on Instagram and stuff, where you shooting long distances and practicing, because then it makes obviously the closer ones easier. But Total Archery Challenge taught me a lot about that, and practicing those different shot angles and the different everything that goes along with it. And I was practicing shooting off my knees and kind of on the side of a hill, because in all of this shot was like, if you could take the perfect shot you'd want at an elk, everything was perfect. Like, I didn't have to stop him. He was just, he was pushing these cows around, but kind of feeding at the same time. Wasn't like full, like chasing them or anything. And he just stopped there, put his front leg forward, broadside, 60 yards. Wind died down. It was like everything meant to happen that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. How it works out like that.
Yeah. So how was your season last year?
It was really good. It was great, really. I never had so much success as I did last year. You know, every hunt, I was able to get the animal, and started out with an antelope in August. Got a nice buck on public land there, and then went right into elk hunting, over-the-counter archery in Colorado, and got a nice 6-point bull there on a backpack hunt, 5 miles in, solo. I kind of wish I had my buddy along at that point. He filled his tag 3 days earlier, and he was back at work already. But yeah, I went from there to got whitetails in Wisconsin and Indiana, and mule deer in Colorado, and a mountain goat in Colorado. So that was I've been applying for, I don't know, 13 years, something like that. I finally drew that Colorado mountain goat tag, and that was an amazing hunt. Camped at about 12,000 feet, and the hunting was all up from there, just in the high rugged cliffs, and it's just amazing the country they live in. And man, it was a rugged hunt. It was cold. I should have been miserable, but I actually just had a smile on my face the whole time. I was just loving every minute of that hunt. It was a good time.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I saw that you did that, and I didn't realize that through the season you had hunted that many different places and ended up tagging out and all of it. That's a pretty banner year.
Yeah. Eight hunts, 8 animals. So, I don't think I've ever been successful in all my tags before. And I know there's some years when I had a lot of tag soup in the past. So I'm pretty pumped about that. Hopefully I can keep that streak going here.
Damn, that's Aaron Snyder like right there.
Aaron Snyder's like 5 times that.
Yeah, he's nuts.
The success might be like Snyder, but he's got 40 animals a year or something like that when he does it. In fact, he was one of the testers on our new whiteheads this year, and I was having trouble getting a count of how many animals we actually took. I think there was a dozen of us testing the new whiteheads, and we took about 50 animals total, but Aaron took over half of those himself with the whiteheads. So.
Yeah, he's a good field tester, that's for sure.
He's the best.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that gets so many animals on the ground as he does, for sure.
Yeah, I hope at some point I can do that, which I don't know if I could do as many hunts as he does. Like, everyone thinks that that's like the dream, to be able to hunt that much, but for me, I don't know if I could do it. That's a lot.
I started to realize that last year too, that I thought that at one time too, that I would just love to just hunt, every day year round. But in reality, man, you get worn out. Going right from, the antelope isn't too hard of a hunt. It's, Eastern Plains, but then that elk hunt was pretty brutal. Buddy of mine, Eric, got his bull, and we packed his down to a creek actually, and got it packed out from there. But yeah, it was pretty rough just getting that out, and then hiked out, slept in my truck for a night, trying to kind of recover, hiked in the next morning, another probably 5 miles with a full pack, and, got a bull a couple of days later, and then I was solo, and then I spent 2 days packing that thing out, 5 miles, and it was, 3 loads of 80 pounds of meat. And, I had a good solid Kafaru pack and some trekking poles make it doable. You just got to take your time and get it done. But yeah, I was pretty beat. And then I just had, a week or two, and then my mountain goat hunt started. So I was actually liking a little bit of rest in between the hunts this year,
Yeah. That would be rough. I couldn't imagine, I the solo deal for an elk is crazy, packing that out. Cause like when I was packing my bull out, it was me and 3 other guys to take, so we got it out in one load, and we figured my pack with the hindquarter and the head and the hide and everything on it, and all my gear was somewhere around 105, 110 pounds, but it was it was, I think, a 2.5 mile pack out. It wasn't anything crazy. And, that was tough too. You know, I mean, like I couldn't imagine having to go back out and then be like, oh, I got to turn back around and go back in and get another load and, you know, do that again.
The nice thing is I don't have a real job anymore. You know, it's just the Broadhead company, and if I'm not working, there's lost opportunity there. But I prioritize hunting over work, and you know, during September for sure. So, you know, I knew I had days to get it out if I needed to. I sunk it down in a cold creek, a double contractor bag the meat, so it wasn't, nothing was going to happen to it. I could have taken 3 days if I needed to. And then I don't overload it too bad. You know, when 80 pounds, I kind of know I can do 80 pounds for many miles, and it's not gonna kill me. I'm not gonna hurt anything other than, you know, have some sore muscles and things from that. But when we took Eric's bull out, he wanted to do the one trip deal with 2 guys and camp and bows and everything. And I'm like, Eric, let's just take 2 trips. It's like, no, I don't want to climb this hill again. So he had basically 2 loads of meat, and I had a load of meat, and I carried the whole head and antlers, and my bow too, or did he carry my bows? I don't know. We were way too overloaded. But the good thing is we only had to drop down a mile or so down to a creek. But even that short time with that much weight on, because we each had well over 100 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, things that you step, and I did too. I kind of stumbled a little bit and almost, you know, did a header off the side of this. You know, it wouldn't have killed me, but it would have hurt pretty good rolling down the side of this hill. And that's the problem with having just too much weight is, yeah, you step wrong way and you're down and you hurt yourself, and then you're out of luck for a while.
Yeah, and I don't know. Everyone makes fun of me when we're hunting because my ankles are extremely weak. It seems like it. They laugh at me about it, but I'd be coming down and I rolled it twice. Like it just completely buckled underneath me on uneven terrain on some rocks and stuff, and that wasn't very fun. I was like, just got to keep moving, because as soon as you stop, it starts to tense up and swell. So I was like, just keep going until I got back to camp. Then I was good to go. But yeah, that's funny. And I'm sure that it was a lot of experience of learning that where your comfortable load was.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, different boots over the years and things like that. You know, I've tried to go too light, and it's really nice to have a light pair of boots on while you're hunting and you're ascending. But I've just found that I need a certain level of ankle support when you add all that weight and you're off trail. You know, that's when it's brutal, is when there's not a good trail to hike on and you're side hilling and stuff like that with a bunch of weight on. It's I wear heavier boots than most, probably just for that reason.
What boots do you use?
Yeah, I've gone a few different things. I mean, I've got a pair of like a Loa Mountain Hunters, and those are pretty bomb-proof. They're pretty thick leather, and I used those for a number of years. And then last year I tried the crispy, I've tried some other lighter ones like Vask that were more synthetic and didn't have a lot of ankle support. And those just didn't do it for me. I mean, they were great for hunting, but I couldn't take the heavy load on side hills. Last year I used crispy, the Thors, and they're really kind of a shorter boot than I normally would, but man, they were just so comfortable. And I really liked hunting in them. But that pack out of that elk, my feet were pretty sore afterwards. So I've gone to the Brickstall now.
Okay.
Just for some more, stiffer sole, a little more cushion, a little more ankle support. And I really like those. So that's what I'm using now.
Okay. I was using the Loa Tibet, which is it's a pretty heavy, leather boot and good ankle support. I like those boots a lot. I've had them for the last 5 years and used them. I'm looking at some, whenever I do an elk hunt again, some different Crispies. I was looking at the Brickstols I've heard good things about. I like that style, almost like a mountaineering type boot. And then there's another one that's similar to it. Can't think of the model, but those both were kind of I like that. I've tried using even just around here hiking, I've tried to use some lighter weight ones, packing in even my tree stands and stuff like that, and I just didn't feel comfortable in it, with that. I like a little bit of a stiffer boot. They are heavier, but I'd rather not hurt myself from it.
Yeah, it just protects. I just found it protects your feet better and your ankles. So, yeah, you might be a little more tired, but it's not going to kill you to do a heavy load on a side hill or something like that. Your feet or ankles are going to survive it. So, the Loa Tibet is just maybe an inch or two shorter than the Loa Mountain Hunter that I had. But yeah, a great boot for sure.
Yeah.
You can get those resoled too. I mean, mine are probably 8 years old and they're still good because I've had them resoled as well.
Well, the one thing that I screwed up was on year number 1 or 2, I put them on a boot dryer and I left it plugged in for 3 days without, and it dried the leather out real bad, which still, I mean, I condition them like 4 times a year and it's just, the leather isn't what they should be, and starting to leak a little bit, but I don't know. I might end up using them in Alaska here again, so I gotta just make sure they're good to go for that.
Well,
so, Bill, I want to hear a little bit about the new wide series. You were talking about doing some testing with that, and you gave me one at the ATA show. I was going on a whitetail hunt in Ohio, and I was there for a couple days, and I ended up not shooting it or not killing anything with it, but been doing some testing with it, and from my perspective, they fly for me the same as the S125s did, which I'm using the 125s also with the wide cut. I haven't tried shooting them at distance as where I was, when I was shooting them 80 yards, the S125s. With these ones, I shot them out to 60 though, and they didn't plane for me or anything, so that was a pretty positive thing for the size of those heads.
Yeah. We started with the V series, then we added the S series, which is our original vented blade, and then solid blade. But they're all the same size, which was 1 16th wide main blade, 3/4 inch wide bleeder, so about 1.8 inch total cut. And I've had hundreds of mainly whitetail guys asking for a wider cut. They felt it was kind of overkill for whitetails. They're zipping through and sticking way into the dirt, and felt like they could, a lot of people just felt like they could get a wider head through there pretty easily on a whitetail. I agreed they're overkill for whitetail, but also one thing about whitetails is they're one of the more likely things to move on you. I think I've hunted, it was 7 different species in the last year or so, and elk and Broadhead and some other animals aren't nearly as likely to move, I think, as a whitetail. So even though they're a little easier to get a pass through on, they're also more likely to duck and hit the spine, or turn into the head and hit the shoulder blade and things like that, or jump forward. So anyway, having a broadhead that's overkill, I don't think is a bad thing. But after thinking about it a lot, I thought, okay, for whitetails, bears, things where there's a little more controlled, closer shot, why not give a wider cut? And so spent a couple years really designing the wider head. Wanted to make sure I wasn't going to give anything up on durability, and have them fly as well as possible. Doing fluid dynamic modeling to try and keep the drag down, things like that. But anyways, we come up with it. Made a bunch of them last summer. They're 1 3/8 wide main blade, 3/4 inch wide bleeder, so 2 1/8 inch total cut. Placed them with about a dozen testers, and we took about 50 animals total with them, mainly whitetails. But yeah, all the feedback was good. I had each tester shoot them to 60 yards and see how they grouped with field points. They all reported good groups at 60 yards, so that was good to hear. and we didn't have any failures on any animals, even going down through, spine on a big whitetail buck. And we had a pass through that included like that knuckle, that elbow on a whitetail. On the entry side, it still made a full pass through. And, even on all those shots, the broadheads are looking good afterwards. And yeah, the people that test them were excited about it. More, bigger holes, more blood on the ground, everything that people like to see, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I haven't, again, shot one with the wide series, but the S125 I've taken multiple deer with, and the one I shot, it was a quartering away shot, and I punched through, and it came out the opposite side shoulder and right on that knuckle, and it snapped the leg right in half. It was just incredible. I feel really confident with them, and I think with me, with my equipment and my setups and stuff, I need to be confident in it, and not all the time is the shot going to be perfect. And especially, a lot of places I'm hunting, and a lot of the people that are listening to this that are hunting through the Appalachian range for whitetails, where our shot opportunities are very slim and far in between. It's thick. You get small windows of opportunities. You got to make it happen. And I'm not afraid of holding tight to that shoulder. In case it does go through there, I'm confident in my arrow setup and the broadhead and the whole entire bit there. So, and I've been using iron will broadheads now since the first year that you came out with them. When I first bought them, I had the V series, and then I went to the solid heads, and they've all been, I still have all of them except for one or two of them that I lost, but that was just because I lost them. None of them were, I just can resharpen them and keep going.
Yeah, that's the only thing we don't cover under warranty is if you lose them completely.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a tough one to be able to do an investigation on there.
But I think I attribute my increased success in recent years to different shot placement. Having confidence in the equipment to where I'm not only going to take that perfect broadside shot, but I'll also take, a frontal or even a slight quartering, because I just know I've tested enough. The last two mule deer I shot were frontals with the bait, just a slight quartering on, really, and that's the only shot I was going to get on those. They stopped. They kind of knew something was up. I waited till they kind of looked away, but I felt like they were just going to turn and get out of there. And I took the shot, and one of them, went just inside the shoulder blade, got a full pass through out near the hind quarter. It was a quick kill. The other one, he ducked and turned as I shot, and it went right through the shoulder blade, but it still passed all the way through and got an exit, behind the ribs. And he was down in 20 yards too. And so, yeah, I think, like Tony Treat shot a giant mule deer, 200-inch mule deer in Colorado a couple years ago. I think it was just on the cover of Eastman's. And that was a downward shot where he went right through the spine on that big mule deer buck. And it completely severed the spine, like in two pieces, and went down into the vitals. And that's a big, heavy spine. And, he said, heads he shot in the past would not have gone through that. So I think making it so those different shot opportunities you're presented with are going to be a success and not a failure is pretty important too.
Yeah. And, I hunt off the ground a decent amount for whitetails, and I learned this from my dad, but he, was teaching me you got to be able to shoot frontals when they come at you and be able to pass through and everything. And last year, this was a mistake I had made, but I took a shot on a whitetail buck that was a frontal, and I thought he was at somewhat of a level of me, but he was below me. I was in a tree stand, but where he came across this ridge, I thought he was at a decent angle, and I shot. And it was all my shot placement. I had it too low where I needed to have it up a little bit. Completely passed through. I just clipped one lung, and that buck ended up living, and a guy shot him in rifle season. But yeah, it completely passed through. It's just that was on a placement. But I guess what I was getting at is just like being able to be confident. And, I was 100% confident in the shot and everything. It was just where I, had the placement with the angle there. So I try not to make that shot at elevated position just because it's such a small margin for error. But like you were saying, it opens up different opportunities by being confident in what your arrow and broadhead's going to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I did some recent force testing just to see what the force would be of our S100 versus our S125. S100 is just a little bit shorter front to back, so there's a slightly steeper, angle on that blade. Instead of 22 per side, it's more like 25 per side. And then our wide head being 30% wider. I pushed those all through using an instrument machine, so I can measure force versus distance very accurately, pushing down through that. And I used Broadhead parts, which are similar to a deer in size, I would say, for pushing through hide and then muscle. It only took about 11 pounds to push our broadhead down through there. I mean, it's with that sharp edge, extremely sharp edge that just retains that edge. It takes very little force just to push that through hide and hair. And you take that versus like a 3-blade chisel point, that jumped up to 80 pounds to push that through that same hide and hair. And then mechanicals was up over 160 pounds to do that.
Wow.
Yeah. And then if you look at hide, hide, meat, and then shoulder blade, the force for iron will broadheads was about 30 pounds to push through. And it was similar between our standard and our wide, actually. And I attribute that to the sharpness of that edge. I think once you get the tip started through there, having a little wider didn't really increase the force. I think that edge sharpness is so high that it just doesn't take that much force to keep it going through there. But 30 pounds for our head, and then it jumped up to 160 pounds for some 3-blade heads. So over 5 times more force to push through. So for whatever momentum you have, that's going to be equal to force over time. And if you can cut the force in half, say you're going to push through it twice as long or twice as far. So keeping that force low is really critical to getting pass-throughs especially when you have a shoulder blade or something like that included.
Yeah, that's incredible and being able to test that the way that you do just kind of shows that not all fixed blades are created equal, because you always hear the discussion of fixed blades versus mechanicals, but definitely goes deeper than that.
Yeah, and mechanicals it was over 400 pounds to. I mean, that's how much force. I kind of maxed out the machine going down at 400 pounds, and it was crushed it all down to the table, and it never did actually penetrate the bone. And I would have started damaging the load cell to continue. So I stopped at 400 pounds, but it never actually penetrated the shoulder blade. So you can see that's over 10 times the force. So yeah, I mean, to me, I don't see a good reason ever to use a mechanical, really. I mean, especially for whitetails when your shots are 40 and under. I just think that if you want a little bigger head, go with the wider fixed blade. But mechanicals just take so much force to pass through that when you get a shoulder blade or something doesn't go quite right, there's just such a it's pretty marginal on whether you're just going to get a failure and lose that animal.
Yeah, that's true. And it just, I mean, we could go all day as far as the things with mechanicals, but I've only used mechanicals a few times, and I had one where the blade didn't open, and that ended up still killing the animal, but it only one of the blades had kind of like slightly open, another one was closed, and it was just kind of a mess. And I understand there's some that make it somewhat fail proof, but still there's a lot of moving parts to that, and for failure purposes there. And I've always been able to justify a little bit of a smaller cut for it, which your wide series now are 1 3/8 on the big blades. Is that correct?
Yep, 1 3/8 big blade, and then there's a cross blade bleeder at 7 3/4, so it's 2/8 inch total cut there. So yeah, I shot 2 whitetails with it last year, and Yeah, that makes a big hole. Even the one, one was just kind of a perfect double long shot, and it just made it 10 yards and was down. But another one was a 42-yard shot and kind of low light, and it was quartering more than I thought, and I ended up getting a one long liver hit. And that's really where the whitehead. So I was kind of on the fence about, do we really need a whitehead or not? But that shot convinced me that, a whitehead is kind of nice if you hit back a little bit, because I think just having that more damage, and our heads, they're really sharp, so they're slicing all the way through. And I think even our compact heads, you get more bleeding than you would on a typical head, just because that sharpness maintains through the hide and ribs and everything there. But having that bigger cut on that whitetail, he ran about 100 yards and died quickly, and there was just a ton of blood on the ground in that 100 yards. So I think he bled out and died a lot faster than he would have with the smaller cut. It's that single lung liver or just liver hit where that bigger cut helps you out for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. And really, if you make the exact perfect shot, most broadheads will work for it, but we're all hunters, we're human. That always doesn't happen. And that's where I like to have the reliability of knowing that it's going to help out even when things aren't perfect.
Right. And there's been kind of a debate about that, if you hit forward in the shoulder, you're going to wish you had like a durable, cut on contact 2-blade or something like that. But if you hit back, a lot of guys say you're going to wish you had a mechanical. And I kind of feel like the whitehead is a better solution, because if you hit forward, it's still going to go through the shoulder blade. And if you hit back, it's going to make a bigger cut, liver or guts. It's going to do more damage and put that animal down quicker, die quicker. So yeah, I think I'm feeling pretty good about it. I feel really good about it actually for whitetails, bears as well, because they have that thick hair, and they're not that hard to pass through, but that thick hair and fat, they are known for not bleeding as well. And we've had really good results in the bear hunts I've been on the last few years, just shooting our standard, our V series, or S series. But I think a bigger hole, just in general, if you talk to a lot of bear guys, bear outfitters, they like a little bigger hole for that blood tracking.
Yeah, no, definitely. And if you think about it, that head's 1 3/8. A lot of mechanicals are only 1.5 inches, and they can go up to 2 inches, but that's only on each side. Like the same thing when I think of axle to axles on a bow, and I'm like, oh man, that one's 33 or mine's 30. I'm like, well, that's only 1.5 inches on each side. And if you look at broadheads, that's only, say there's an 1/8 of an inch difference. That's only a 1/16 on each side, essentially. Of a difference, which isn't a whole lot. And to be able to have the durability, the toughness and stuff of it, that's a pretty good solution.
Yeah, and the other thing with mechanicals is I've tested a lot of them now too, and in order to not snap their blades on the way in, they're pretty soft. They're down in the mid 40s for Rockwell C, 46 or 48 Rockwell C. So the edges aren't very sharp, really, compared to your average, what you can get with a blade. Having that softness, you just don't get that sharp to start with. And then that edge is gone as soon as you go through hide, and for sure hide in the rib. So what that does is those edges are dulled right as you go through hide or hide in the rib. It's taken more force to penetrate from then on. And it's not cutting as well. It's just kind of pushing tissue or tearing tissue. And if you do get through the other side, it's trying to tear a hole through there, but, often they don't make it all the way through. And then when they don't, you don't have that, low exit hole for that better blood as well. So, people that argue a large entrance hole beats an exit hole, I totally disagree. And I think, a lot of, I've got a blood tracking dog, and I talk to blood trackers as well too. And I think if you ask those guys, they'll tell you that having an exit hole greatly increases their chance of finding that animal. For sure.
They actually just legalized that in Pennsylvania last year, the year before, the blood tracking dogs, and that's I think that's incredible. But anyways, that also, when everyone's comparing, mechanicals to fixed blades, I feel like even the guys that are for fixed blades are saying with mechanicals, it's just because of the loss of energy, or maybe I'm not describing this correctly, but from the mechanicals opening. But it sounds like the sharpness of the blade might even be more important than that, or equally at least.
Yeah, that's what I found is that I shot mechanicals, some of the leading mechanicals. I measured the force to push through things, but I also shot them through just hide over shoulder blade, and just going through a shoulder blade, either the blades would be badly bent or broken off. And then when I hit like a heavy bone, like a leg bone, they just exploded.
Yeah.
They were, the durability is an issue. To get that wide, you're doing 100 grain or even 125. You got pretty thin blades, so they're going to bend or break. And so that's the concern, is that once they do enter, they're not slicing very well, and they're not killing as effectively as they could as well.
Yeah. All right. So a lot of the things too that you hear with, fixed blades is guys saying they can't get them to shoot right and everything. So I want to hear, you actually had an Instagram post the other day that I thought laid it out really great as far as what to do with your bow to make sure that you're shooting your fixed blades the same as you are field points. So do you want to kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I can walk you through that. Yeah, so let's start with the arrow. You want to make sure you're not underspined. You want to make sure your arrow's stiff enough for the head weight and for your bow. And that can if you are underspined, you can get a lot more flexing in your arrow as it comes off your bow. It's pretty erratic, and with that bending side to side, there's just more chance for some pressure on the side of that head that would want to push it off course. So, and the funny thing is, a lot of guys know they're underspined and they do it anyways because they want to get a certain speed or something like that. But, don't do it. Even if you're shooting mechanical, don't be underspined, because you're just losing energy, a lot of energy at that flexing, and you're not going to group as well with your bow. So, make sure your arrow's not underspined. Make sure your broadhead spins true. Get a little arrow spinner. They're pretty cheap. You can lay your arrow on there and you can spin it and look at the point, and make sure that's staying right on center. If that's wobbling back and forth, side to side, as you're shooting, if that head is not on center, you can see how it's going to create pressure on one side and push it off course. So make sure it's spinning true. If it's not, it could be the arrow, could be the insert, could be the broadhead. So you can kind of swap those out, move your broadhead to another arrow, see if it goes with the broadhead or if it stays with the arrow, things like that. Put your field point on, see how that does. But make sure your broadhead spin true. Make sure you have enough fletch on there. When you have, broadhead, you have more surface area on the front, so just more area for pressure to act and want to push it off center. And what you need then is some fletch at the back to create some drag there and maintain stability. So I'll sometimes see that somebody will have like a real small target fletch on there, and what you want to have is more fletch than that, like something like a high profile shorter vein, like a blazer vein, works well. I just recently tested blazer veins and Max Hunters.
Yep.
And Q2i Fusion 2, and they're all about the same height and area. They're all kind of a shorter, high-profile vein, and they all work great. I really liked all. I was kind of headed down to those three of the ones that I thought kind of steered things really well. If you want to go a lower profile, some people don't like those. They think they're a little bit loud. The blazer vein, the AE Max Hunter. They have a little bit of noise to them. The Q2i Fusion 2 is a little bit less noise, but it's a little heavier and had just slightly more drag. So, but I think any of those three worked really well for me. In like a 4-fletch configuration, I've tested the Max Stealth vein and the Heat veins, and they're kind of a similar height and length. And in 4-fletch, both those worked really well for me. It's a little bit more weight, a little bit more drag, but if you want a quiet setup, those work pretty well. In all cases, I was trying to get about 2.5 degrees of offset or helical, and to me, offset and helical are the same thing. If you take a line and you offset it on a cylinder and you wrap that around a cylinder, it's a helix. So to me, they're not really a difference. I mean, you can buy a helical or offset clamp, but a helical clamp is just trying to get a certain offset and then wrap a shaft of a certain diameter. And so it kind of depends on what your fletching jig is, but I don't get hung up on helical or offset. I think either's fine, but I like to see over 2 degrees. And so the reason for that is you want to have some spin there. If let's say that point isn't perfectly on center, but it's off a little bit, that might create some pressure, say on the side of that broadhead. Well, if you're spinning, that force is kind of spinning with it, and it'll just kind of keep you, on center. Versus if you're not rotating and that broadhead is off a little bit, that pressure is just going to keep pushing in the same direction and want to kind of push it off a little bit. So you can see how with a broadhead, it's going to help to have spin to start with. And then also as your arrow's spinning, you've got this stability from that spin. You've got this rotational momentum that'll take more force to knock it off course. So let's say you get a little wind gust partway down. That wind gust isn't going to push it as far or make that arrow angle as much if it's spinning, because it has that rotational momentum. It's kind of like a gyroscope. If you spin those up and then see how much torque it takes to move those things around, that spinning rotational momentum will keep it on track, on axis. So yeah, I've had this argument with pro shops too that say, well, your arrow is going to spin just coming right out of the bow, or your arrow is going to spin because the earth is rotating or something like that. And, I want it to spin more than one rotation in 24 hours here. I want it to spin, on purpose. So yeah, put enough angle to get some rotation there. That will help you.
Well, just a couple comments on what the things you covered so far is, and I worked in a pro shop and everything, there's a couple things that I saw too. And, as the FOC thing got big and everyone wanting to add point weight, is what was weakening the spine of an arrow. So you have to say when I was shooting the gold tip platinum Pierce arrows, just the way my setup was, I ended up having to go down to a 300 spine instead of a 350, which is what it said was right for my bow, but I had a lot of point weight up there. So for me to get everything to shoot right, I had to stiffen the spine up a little bit. And that's one thing that's not as easy to figure out for people that aren't messing with them all the time or don't have the opportunity to try a bunch of different arrows. And, so that was one thing. And then, I think it's been 3 years now, I've been shooting 4-fletch. I was shooting the AE Max Hunters, and the new ones I'm shooting are those Q2i ones. And the 4-fletch configuration, I love it. And I do the 2.5 degree helical on it, and it's money for that.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, that has become a problem that people are often trying to add point weight or increase their FOC. And there's not a lot of good arrow charts out there to help you out, figure out what the right spine is. There's some software programs, Pinwheel or Archer's Advantage. I'd suggest using those. I think there might even be free online versions. And I think Three Rivers has although they might only be for like a trad setup, but I think they have like a free arrow test or arrow spine program. But yeah, it's not just readily available on most arrow manufacturers' spine charts anymore when you're adding something other than a 100 grain head or 125 grain head up front. But yeah, with a little bit of work, it's you'll be able to figure it out and find the right spine. And one way to test this too is take your arrow and shoot with different buy some field points of heavier weights and see how they group for you. Just kind of reinforce it as well. And I like to, suggest people first do run it through a little spine program and and try to be, nominal or slightly stiff on spine. But when you get your arrow set up, I like to play around with shooting a little bit heavier, a little bit lighter, see if something groups better, and it might tell you that you're on the hairy edge of being maybe overspined or underspined. Overspined hasn't really been an issue for me, but I don't go too extreme on overspined either.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive a little deeper. What else do you look at after you have your arrow set up and everything's true there?
Yeah, so once the arrow's set up now, the bow needs to be tuned so that the arrow comes straight off the bow. If it's fishtailing right or left or porpoising up or down, that broadhead is going to get pressure on one side or the other and push it off and open up your group. So, taking the time to get your bow tuned, and it's going to vary a bit on bow type, but basically, set center shot, set the vertical correctly, and then go through the steps to tune your bow. And what I do personally is to check it, I'll paper tune with the fletch shaft and then a bear shaft. Bear shaft, I just get a little more fine adjustment. I can see there, shooting through paper at 12 feet or so, 10, 12 feet. So that's what I'll do initially. And then, from there I'm changing, knock point up or down. And then depending on the bow, I'm either yoke tuning or shifting cams, trying to leave the center shot, where it's supposed to be, but doing those other things to adjust right, left hairs and get that all on center. And then I'll move out to 20 yards and shoot a fletch shaft with a bear shaft. And what I want to do is get them hitting right next to each other and have the shafts be parallel. And, what I'll typically see when I first do that is that the bear shaft will be, right, left, or up or down from the fletch shaft, and it'll be at a little bit of an angle, the shaft will be a little bit of an angle, right or left. And then I'll do small adjustments. Typically at that point, I'm doing small adjustments right or left to my rest, like very small amount, like 1/16 of an inch type movement. And that's typically what I need to do just to get those things hitting just right with each other. And then I'll shoot them at 30 and 40. And if I get a bear shaft and a fletch shaft, like hitting together, parallel, shafts just about touching at 40, man, I'm going to be able to shoot broadheads to 100 yards plus with field points.
Okay. Gotcha. And that's just, I wanted to ask you that because that is something that you hear a lot. And same thing when, again, I worked at a pro shop, saw hundreds of people come in every year, and they would just get mechanicals because they didn't need to mess with it or do anything that, as they thought. But you get your bow tuned correctly and your arrow set up and everything else, and you're in a good spot. And it's taken, even me a while to kind of figure out exactly what that looks like. And now I kind of have a system that works, and I try not to change it a whole lot. And my last few bows have been primes that have been very similar to each other. So that made it easy. When I was working at a shop there for a while, I was just shooting a bunch of different bows, and every one of them was a little bit different. And, at the Matthews, there's a top hats and moving them, and just so many different things that that are a part of it. But once you get it figured out, it definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. And, once you learn it, it's pretty quick. I set up a new Hoyt this year, and I think I had that thing fully tuned in an hour. I mean, everything just kind of worked out there. But
yeah.
Also set up a Matthews, and once I had got the top hat kit in ordered in, it was really quick to set that up too, so I could shim the cam over. But yeah, it's, most everybody says our heads shoot really well for them. And at one time I thought they would shoot well for everybody. But what I find is there's always a few guys that have some issue. And I think our original V100, man, that head is forgiving. I can shoot that out of a bow that's out of tune. I can see the arrow fishtailing, and I'm still hitting with field points pretty well at 40. And so I think a lot of whitetail hunters just can shoot that head and in place of their mechanical and have no issues there. But I'd recommend anyways, getting your bow tuned in. But yeah, the things I've found, the few people that have come back and said there's an issue with your broadhead. I'm not shooting your broadheads well. I've worked with them a little bit, and it's typically, yeah, they're underspined, or they don't know anything about bow tuning. You know, I asked, was your bow tuned at all? And they said, well, they paper tuned it when I bought it 2 years ago. You know, and so I think a lot of guys do that. They just get it tuned by their bow shop, and sometimes it's just through a shooting machine when they first buy it, and then they don't really know how to check their tune and things like that. And man, I've had to every bow I've had to retune the thing a few months later.
Yeah.
Just from shooting it, string stretch or whatever. I don't know if things creep a little bit or twist. I've never figured out all the reasons why I have to retune my bow, you know, every few months, but I often do. So I like to keep checking tune as the time goes on, and as my hunting season goes on too. I'll come back and, you know, shoot it through paper, shoot a bare shaft, make sure everything's still good to go.
Yeah, and that's why I like to shoot my broadheads a lot, especially this time of year. But I start earlier now, or before I'd always wait until August. Like a lot of some people wait until right before the season. But you know, I like to give it more time if there's any problems to be able to figure out if it came out of tune. But also just in your regular practice, I always keep a practice broadhead in my quiver and at least shoot one or two of them a night, just kind of confirm everything there too.
Yeah, and so that's about it for the bow and the arrow. The last thing would be just your form. You know, torque in the grip is a issue some people just have, and I guess facial pressure can be a problem too, or contact of your veins on your wrist or something like some of those basic things too. But grip, torque in your grip is maybe the last thing that if you get somebody to take their phone and video, you know, most phones now have like a slow motion video you can do, but have a friend like video you from kind of right on the side or right behind you as you're shooting, and look and see what your bow's doing. Is your bow twisting right or left? Is your arrows coming off there or not? You might just have to work on your grip and your form a little bit as the last thing. Yeah,
and you can also see it. One thing that I've done is take a video, like you said, behind and even up looking at your upper cam there and your string angle that comes off. You know, if some people are torquing it hard, it's coming off at an angle and you can see it pretty clearly there. Completely agree.
Yeah, you know, shooting Total Archery Challenge last weekend, I was just, you know, watching some people I was shooting with and telling them, you know, your muscle shouldn't be pumping out of your hand like that. You know, relax that hand a little bit there. And you could see that was, you know, throwing the arrow right or left. That was with field points on. Yep. You know, 6 inches just from torquing the bow a bit.
All right. So what else? All right. So moving on from broadheads a little bit, what else do you got going on at Iron Will? Anything else new coming at you? Yeah, just one last thing on the whiteheads. We just did one more thing of testing. We did a hog hunt here a couple months ago with my friend Blake Hunter, and 4 of us took 16 hogs, primarily using the whiteheads. A couple guys had the standards too, I think. But it was just kind of a test. I get a lot of questions. Should I use the whitehead on elk or a little bigger animal? So those hogs are a pretty good test. They got really thick hide. It's almost like, it's tough. It's stiff, more like plastic than leather almost. Heavy hair and heavy bones. And so 16 hogs, we got pass-throughs on we got, you know, exit holes on every hog, even with, I think one guy was shooting a 47-pound recurve. And I shot 2 where one was a double shoulder blade, double shield pass-through shot, and I got exit hole on that one, made it through both shoulders. And then a downward 45-degree angle through the spine where it cut like 4 of these little ribs that stick up on the top of the spine. I don't know what you call those, but it cut 4 of those off clean, went through 3-4 inches of spine, and then buried back into the pelvis. So anyway, the whitehead penetration has been great, and those heads look like new. I put a photo on our Instagram of them. So anyway, at first I wasn't sure about the whitehead, if I would say it's not going to penetrate as well as the solid, and everything we've seen is that they penetrate really well. So I want to just give that info as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so other things going on. We came out with the K1 ultralight knife last year. I think you mentioned you used it for your elk.
Yep.
We're just adding, we've had a lot of requests for a handle for that, so you didn't have to use it as a skeleton or with a paracord wrap. So we're CNC machining some G10, two-color G10 material for a handle. You can buy that as a kit and add it to the knife if you already have it, or you'll be able to buy the knife now with that included. And yeah, by the end of July here, we'll have that on our website for sale. We also added another knife. I've been working on a skinning knife that has the blade's a little bit shorter in length, and it's much wider, and it's got a big sweeping radius to it. So it's more like it's more like a specialty skinning knife. And there's a hole through the blade, so you can choke up on it and get a real positive hold on it with your finger through that, with your index finger through that hole. And it's similar to an old skinning knife that I had years ago, and really like how that works for skinning. So we had quite a few guys test it this year, and they're pretty excited about that one as well.
Good.
And our K1 knife, original one, just weighs 1 ounce, so it's the lightest full length, hunting knife that I'm aware of. And it's got that back top, the top edge is sharp near the tip for ripping hide, things like that. But anyways, it's 1 ounce skeleton. I think with the sheath, with the Kydex sheath and the handle, it'll still be under 2 ounce. I think it'll be like 1.9 with that.
Huh, that's crazy.
Yeah, and our new skinning knife, I think it's going to be 1.1 as a skeleton knife, and with the sheath and handle, it'll still be under 2 ounces as well.
Wow. I wrap my handle in paracord, and I liked it because at first when I got the knife, I was kind of concerned of how thin it was and like getting a grip on it. Once I wrapped it in paracord, for me personally, I thought it worked great. I had no issues with it, and skinned my elk out and everything there. I carry a little carbide sharpener in my kill kit in case I need to just touch it up a little bit as you're cutting through hide and stuff, and just did a full fleshing on a rattlesnake skin the other day with it, and that worked really well.
I saw that. So you have a lot of rattlesnakes around there?
Yeah, we do. We do have a decent amount. They're in pockets. They're not everywhere, but some places have more than others. But yeah.
I battle with snakes here. I'm in the foothills in Colorado, and my hunting dog's been bit twice this summer by rattlesnakes.
Really?
Well, yeah, I found one and killed it, but there's more around for sure. But I got the routine down now. I just go to CSU vet hospital. They put her on antivenom and overnight, and she's pretty good by the next day. So
that's incredible.
It's expensive though, so I gotta cut down the rattlesnakes around here.
Yeah,
sure.
My brother lives just outside of Denver there, and he ran into a place that he goes hiking and running and stuff with his dog all the time. He ran into one the other day, and he thought his dog got bit, and then he realized that she was just being a baby and got scared and made a screech like she got bit, but she didn't.
Yeah, mine takes it like a man. She got bit right on the muzzle and just kept hunting and running around up there, chasing rabbits and whatever. And then I thought she was carrying something in her mouth because her mouth was swollen so big. I thought she'd picked up a gopher or something. I call her over. No, it was just her muzzle was swollen up that big already.
Oh,
and,
man.
Yeah, her head got pretty big by the time I got her to the hospital there. But
jeez.
Yeah, but the vet said now with being bit twice this summer, she's probably just about immune to them at this point.
Jeez.
She bit 3 times total. She got bit when she was 4 months old as well.
That's incredible.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just took her through a snake break clinic to hopefully cure her of that.
Yeah, she takes it better than I think I would, but
it's got to be painful.
Yeah.
For sure.
Anyways, Bill, where can people find, some more information on Iron Will, the new Broadheads, and everything else that we talked about here?
Yeah, our website is ironwilloutfitters.com. Our Instagram is also Iron Will Outfitters, and Facebook is the same as well. So yeah, check that out. We usually post when our new products are coming out on Instagram, kind of identify or notify everybody, and then yeah, a lot of details are on our website. I mentioned some of the force to push through with different broadhead designs, things like that. We just added all that data to our website as well. So yeah, check it out. A lot of good info there.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on. And this is what will be a 2-part series here. So thanks for coming on and talking to me, taking 2 hours out of your day and spending talking about hunting.
Yeah, you bet. If I don't talk to you before the hunt, I'm sure we'll have to get together and share stories afterwards.
Yes, we definitely will. I'm pumped and also excited to get to use that new wide head this year and run it through a few whitetails, hopefully in Pennsylvania, Ohio, maybe New York. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let me know how it works for you. A lot of guys that tested are pretty excited about the wide head. So I think that's going to be a great whitetail head.
Awesome.
For sure.
All right, Bill. Well, we'll talk to you soon then.
Thanks a lot, Beau. Take care.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.